We're all familiar with the concept of a Nuzlocke. You catch the first Pokemon you encounter on every route, and if they die then you release them for good. But what if we tried the opposite? Enter Toast, a moderator of my Discord server and part of my YouTube creator network. Toast approached me with just that idea, an anti-Nuzlocke. I'll let you hear it from him.
Here's what you need to do. Instead of catching a new Pokemon in every area, you need to release one. When they are knocked out, you'll add another to your team from a new area. Next, you can't use your PC boxes, and if the number of Pokemon goes above 6, the challenge is over.
And thus, the concept of an anti-Nuzlocke was born. I grabbed the cute little cheese gator Fuecoco as my starter and switch him into sport mode to take out the first battle against Nimona with ease. On the Poké path, she tries to show me how to catch Pokemon, but I'm not allowed to catch anything yet, since Crocs hasn't died. So we go through the beginning of the game like normal, saving Koraidon, battling Arven, and learning all about Pokemon centers in Los Platos, and then I take on Nimona again outside the Mezagoza gate. I purposely neglected to level up Crocs here because for this beginning part of the challenge, it's actually helpful to die. Her terastallized Palmy takes us out with Thundershock. Normally that would mean the end of our Nuzlocke, but not for the anti-Nuzlocke, no. This is only the beginning. Since Crocs fainted, I can go back to Poké Path and get my second Pokemon, Lamp Brother the Scatterbug. Don't get too attached to her though, since once we get started with the rest of the game, I'm forced to release her. Remember, one of the rules is that every new location we enter requires a sacrifice. I should also mention, there are a few other rules I've added for myself to make the challenge just a bit more interesting. In this run, I'm not allowed to use items in battle, and I'm playing with the Victory Road storyline's level caps. I'm also not going to allow myself to terastallize, which puts us at a significant disadvantage for many of the fights. I tried going in order as best I could for this challenge, so I headed west to take on my first gym. I didn't think this gym would be too difficult since we do have the type advantage, so I went in to fight Katie with an underleveled Crocs.
But right as I start the battle, the game decides it's a great time to throw a rainstorm at me.
And to make things worse, she had Struggle Bug too, which reduced my special attack stat. All these factors combined, our embers deal practically no damage, costing us the battle. At least now I can go back and pick up a Palmy from Route 1. Then I immediately lose again to some random package delivery boy on the side of the road. Like, seriously, what is this? 3 level 14s? That's as strong as the next gym leader. With this defeat, we have to add another 2 to our party, in Extra Virgin the Smoliv and Eek a Mouse the Tandemouse. Katie is a total pushover after a quick grind. Our Ember is able to one-shot the Nimble since we go first before she can land a Struggle Bug. Tarantula is a little bulkier, so it survives our turn 1 Ember, but luckily Bug Bite can't reduce our stats. We finish it off and find ourselves face to face with her Teddiursa. She immediately terastallizes to the Bug type on turn 1, giving her a weakness to my Ember. But not even 2 shots of Ember is enough to kill here, and a combination of Fury Swipes and Fury Cutter brings us into the yellow. We are faster on the next turn though, so we can pick up the slack to win our first badge. Keeping up this momentum, I backtrack to Area 3 of the South Province, where we have to release Eek. Sorry, Sweaty, nothing personnel, kid. But I make sure to replace my mice almost immediately by purposely letting Smoliv suffer. This lets me catch Sorry the Shinx, who I thought I was going to have to sacrifice immediately to get to the Titan, but it turns out South Area 5 is actually optional. Good to know. So instead of being useless fodder, Sorry actually helps us out in the upcoming Titan battle, since its Intimidate ability turns Cloth into a whittle baby. I lead Sorry to get the drop, then switch into Extra Virgin and stall a bit with a few absorbs before allowing it to fall. I had to let Smoliv die so I could safely bring Sorry back in for another Intimidate debuff. I then follow a similar pattern with Flubber, but instead of whittling away health, my goal is to paralyze it and reduce its attack even more with Growl. Nuzzle guarantees us a paralysis, but Palmy's static ability activated, so I honestly didn't even need to use it here. And now that Cloth is doing practically nothing here with its minimized attack stat, I start going for Thundershocks for chip damage. This does eventually activate its Anger Shell ability, meaning Flubber falls very quickly to 2 more hits. Crocs can handle the rest of this battle though, since now it should be able to tank any more Cloth has, and get reliable damage with Neutral Bite. Cloth scurries away in a panic after falling into the deep red. He probably knows I've been eyeing up those Cloth sticks of his for my sandwiches. So after that battle, we have to catch 2 more team members. But to get those new encounters, we have to go to new areas, which means we must release our other team members. This essentially means that in South Province 5, we trade Sorry for Salt Bay the Knackley, and in East Province 1, we trade Extra Virgin for Watch Your Child the Drifloon. This exchanging is kinda silly to me. If I do another anti-Nuzlocke, I'll have to modify the encounter rules a bit. The second Cloth phase is a breeze thanks to Arven's Shelter. I lead Flubber for a first turn paralysis with Nuzzle while the Cloth blocks Shelter in place. Talk about a waste of a turn. It also blocks me in place next, but I'm unfazed by this and just start using Growl over and over again. And after just a few turns, Shelder's water gun carries us to victory. But don't worry, I managed to snipe the kill for myself with Quick Attack, so he can't take all the credit. To get beyond the gates of Artizone, we have to release Watch Your Child, but the real reason I release her is because I don't want to be tied to any cases of child abduction. Brassius is next on my agenda, and he leads the battle with Petlil, which falls immediately to my new move Incinerate. And Smoliv is even weaker, so it had no shot either. Sudowoodo can pose a challenge to me though, since despite becoming a grass type, it still has access to its ability Sturdy and super effective rock type moves. To my surprise though, an Incinerate is not enough to activate Sturdy. I'm lucky though, since instead of using its rock moves, it instead opts to Trailblaze twice. Sometimes I just don't know what the AI is thinking. And with our newly evolved Palmo now, I decide I want to take things a step further and get myself a Palmot. We take a nice long stroll together, but right as I was trying to level it up against a wild Oricorio, we fainted. So I'm forced to get another encounter and do all that walking over again. So instead of dealing with that right now, I move on with my life and go catch Anger Issues the Mankey in West Province 1, after releasing Saltbed to enter the area, of course. Yeah, I'm not really sure how team building is supposed to work with these rules. I guess the new area fodder is a good strategy for now, but what about when I'm late game and have a full or nearly full team? Anyways, I was heading up to the next Titan and wanted to see if I could make it to the top of the mountain without Koraidon helping me break the boulders. About, I don't know, 10 minutes later, I finally make it up to the Titan and start nuzzling away. But because Palmo gained that fighting type when evolving, the Titan's flying type moves do normal damage to us, and so Flubber faints in just 2 turns. At least I can take out the rest of the phase with Crocs. This leaves us very weakened going into the second phase though, so I'm grateful that Arven's Knackley is here with us. After being tormented, I go for an Incinerate for decent damage, then round it out with Round as Arven uses Rock Throw. A Wing Attack brings Crocs to just 4 HP, so to be safe I switch out into Anger Issues to hopefully take an incoming hit from full HP. But Bombardier just goes for another Torment on Knackley, so the switch was completely unnecessary. To account for Palmo's death in that fight, I catch Chimkin the Flittle in the Asado Desert and release Anger Issues in exchange. No, that's not a typo. After evolving Flubber into a Palmot, finally, we then take on our first Starbase. Since Palmot is a fighting type with access to low sweep, we have some good coverage for this dark type leader. He only has 2 Pokemon, one of which is Pawniard, which has a 4 times weakness to fighting type moves. We one-shot it, then challenge the very car he's riding on. Each one of these Revivrooms in the Starbases has unique moves, and the move this Starbase has is Wicked Torque. Although it doesn't deal much damage to Palmot, it does come with the additional chance to put us to sleep. After a few turns had passed, I noticed that we aren't able to paralyze this Revivroom for some reason. I had to look it up online, and it turns out that these cars are considered boss Pokemon, and are immune to paralysis. Kinda stupid if you ask me. Anyways, we get hit with Metal Sound, so to remove the debuff, I switch into Crocs, then back into Flubber, dodging another Metal Sound on the switch-in. I start going for low sweeps, which looking back, I honestly should have just started doing in the first place. Unfortunately though, we get taken down by Swift just before getting the kill, so I have to bring in Crocs for some revenge. Well, we lost someone again. So as you're definitely catching on by now, it's time to exchange team members. This time we're trading off Chimkin for Obsidian the Taurus. But he doesn't stay with us for too long, since we have to pass through East Province 2 to get to the next gym. Up until this point, I'm sure you can tell that some things in this challenge have seemed kinda off. I don't think this rule set is quite as balanced as Toast had originally hoped. He was watching me do this challenge over on Discord the whole time, and he must have picked up on the weird issues with the rules as well.
I want to change the rules a little bit. Would you be okay with restarting the challenge?
It depends on what you mean by change. I'm personally getting a little tired of this back and forth. It's not really interesting.
Yeah, that's what I want to change. I am too. So instead of catching in the order of areas that you're doing now, just start catching new members in areas you've already been to. That'll stop the useless exchanging. Also, let's remove the towns from the list of release locations, since you're just able to sacrifice your way into them anyway. It's kind of it's a waste of time.
Yeah, I completely agree.
This second time around, I started with Gato the Sprigatito, and this time, we don't lose to Nimona outside the Mesagoza gate, so we get a free pass into South Area 2 without needing a sacrifice. But yet another random trainer eviscerated us, so we'll have to get a new encounter right off the bat. Why are some of the random trainers in this game so tough? As per our newly arranged rules though, I get to pick what I want this time, and I know exactly what I'm going for. So I head back to South Area 1 and catch Borb the Fletchling, who's going to give us a significant advantage in the next few gym battles. But even with an advantage, things don't always go the way you plan, as we lost our first attempt against Katie to Teddiursa's Fury moves. So we get 2 new encounters with Pubby the Mastiff and Scrambled the Happini. But I accidentally overleveled them with some candy, so they can't even help us in the gym battle. We start again in the rain this time, just like before, but this time we have no use for fire-type moves since we have Peck. Borb is able to 2-shot Nimble with Peck, and even manages to only need 2 turns for Tarantula as well. But it barely makes a dent in Teddiursa, and we're brought to a single point of health left after a 3-hit Fury swipes. The next Fury Cutter knocks out Borb, but not before we get in a second Peck. Gato will almost certainly faint to the next Fury Cutter, so my best shot is to go for Bite and hope to get a flinch. And just my luck, we actually got it! This gives us just the opportunity we needed to claim victory. To make up for Borb's death in the gym battle, we catch Candy the Jigglypuff nearby, but quickly say goodbye to her so we can progress. This time around, I skip the Titan and try to beat the gym leader first, since I'm worried about everyone going past the level cap. Gato evolved during the gym challenge, and Borb tried to as well, but I stopped that since being 4 times weak to Sudowoodo's rock-type moves rather than just 2 times weak would not be great for us. I also crafted an Air Cutter TM to replace Peck, since Air Cutter is a special move rather than physical. Now we'll be able to target Sudowoodo's weaker special defense. Even though Burb does have worse special attack than attack, we should be able to deal more damage this way. From last time, we know that Brassius just leads his weak Petlil, and my strategy is to set up a substitute to eat damage while I set up speed with agility. My goal is to prompt Sudowoodo into using Trailblaze rather than one of its rock-type moves later in the fight. After a single turn of our agility, we land a critical hit Air Cutter for the knockout. His Smoliv avoids Air Cutter on the next turn and brings our substitute to an end with Tackle. That's incredibly unlucky, but not much I can do. I had wanted to have the substitute up going into Sudowoodo, but now I have to improvise. I go for the immediate Air Cutter into his Grass Terra Sudowoodo, which tanks the hit a lot better than I thought it would, and then I find that even his Trailblaze hits a lot harder than I'd hoped. We came so close, but after another unlucky Air Cutter miss, Sudowoodo's at +3 speed, and we have to bring in Gato. At least the incoming rock throws aren't super effective, so we're able to start chipping away with Swift. And let me tell you, I am so glad I gave Gato this Oranberry, since we definitely would have lost without it. After adding another Knackley aptly named Salt Bay 2, the sequel, to our team to make up for Borb's death, we can start making our way back to where we were before the restart. To get to Iona though, I had to let Salt Bay 2 die to a Steenie to give us some release fodder. Life sure is hard for a Venonat named Sacrifice. In case you're keeping track of where I release things, in East Area 1 I released Pubby, and in East Area 2 I released Sacrifice. Upon reaching Levincia, the first thing I do is pick up the Oval Stone to evolve Scrambled into a Chansey, then immediately evolve again into a Blissey because I don't know where to get an Eviolite in this game. Unless you're here for the supermarket, then there's not much to really do in Levincia except challenge the gym leader. And if you didn't think I was unlucky in that last gym fight, just wait until you see this one. I knew from my Wooper challenge that she led with a Wattrel, so my plan was to use our newly evolved Knackle stack to knock it to the ground with Smackdown. We managed to break through a paralysis induced by Spark to land our attack, which to my surprise is almost a one-shot. But of course I can't take the quick kill on the next turn, so I eat an extra Spark, activating my Oranberry before we're able to finish it off. Bella Bolt's out next, and I predicted that she was going to go for the super effective Water Gun, so in line with my prediction it made the most sense to switch into Scrambled. This thing can take special hits like a champ. I then reduce the Bellabolt's attack with Charm for a super safe switch into Gato, since none of its moves are going to do anything to us. I'm able to set up 2 Home Claws then and go for a Seed Bomb, bringing it down to 1/3 of its health and activating Electromorphous, which of course she used to her advantage with the next Spark attack. But one more Seed Bomb is all we need to finish it off, and we handle Luxio in the same way. Outlast is her Electric Terra Mismagius, which has no weaknesses thanks to Levitate. She hits us with a nasty Confuse Ray, but we manage to make it through for a near kill with Seed Bomb. I switch into Scrambled to shake off the confusion and avoid a potentially nasty Hex, then Sweet Kiss to confuse her so we're able to bring back in our cat. But she breaks through the next turn to confuse us yet again. So here comes another switch turn, and Mismagius ends up only being confused for a single turn, nearly killing Burb with Hex. I decide to go for a Flame Charge thinking Borb may be faster, but I end up being wrong, and so we see our first death of the battle. I go back into Scrambled one final time to set up confusion again, and then I bring back in Salt Bay instead of Gato, hoping to eat a Charge Beam. Unfortunately, I overestimated Knackle Stack's defense, and it quickly falls after Mismagius gets yet another single-turn confusion. Give me a break! Now I get a switch into Gato, but we do take a Confuse Ray. At least we break through with a Seed Bomb for the victory at the end. Maybe if I had just risked Gato hitting itself from the beginning, I may have been able to avoid all those deaths, but thankfully this early in the Anti-Nuzlocke, we don't need to be too careful about adding team members. To make up for our deaths, we had to go catch Enrage the Magikarp and Rook the Sandygast. Yeah, with 6 on our team now, we are dangerously close to losing. Since our team is full right now, if even one of my team members faints, I'll lose the whole challenge. This danger is easily quelled though by entering new areas on our map. But as we get later on in this challenge, there will be fewer and fewer new areas to explore, so our team will eventually start to fill up, with no way to free up space. In East Area 3, we release our Soldier Burb, and in West Area 1, I release Rook. This brings us back down to 4 members, which puts me a bit more at ease. I also picked up victories against the Titans Cloth and Bombardier. As you could probably guess, Gato and Salt Bay laid some real hurt on the two. The extra levels we have on them certainly didn't hurt either. So now with 3 gyms and 2 Titans done, I think it's a good time to do a star base, don't you? I still have coverage for Giacomo's Poniard this time around with low sweep, but first I set up with Home Claws. This means I eat a crit aerial ace before taking it down and heading into Revavroom though. Wicked Torque brings us into the red, and my low sweep does practically nothing, so I'm hoping now that the speed drop was enough to get Gato out safely. But this thing must be designed like a race car, since even after the drop it still manages to outspeed and kill us with Wicked Torque. It's not really that big of a deal though, since we can just bring in Knuckle Stack to finish it off. But then Wicked Torque gets that stupid sleep infliction on us that I mentioned earlier in the video when we battled this base in the last run. So instead of switching out this time, I decide to wait out the sleep as it chips away with more torque. Upon waking up, we can finally get off our stomping tantrum, but then on the next turn we're put to sleep again. Ugh, what the heck? I really need to switch again, and Enraged is my go-to option since we can reduce Revavroom's damage output with Intimidate and bring it down slowly with Waterfalls. That's 1 more death in the books, so we add Honky Tonk the Mudbray to our team and make our way to Cascarafa. But to actually fight the gym leader, we have to go through the Asado Desert. Little Honky Tonk didn't even get to see a single battle before saying goodbye. I also unintentionally entered West Area 2 while trying to sneak into Puerto Marinada, and since I don't have anyone prepared to use as fodder, I'm forced to release Scrambled. I made this choice over releasing any of the others because the upcoming Kofu and Larry fights both primarily have physically offensive Pokemon. So now I'm out of Special Tank with no great ideas for how to replace her. I guess we'll see how the rest of this game goes. Kofu leads Veluza, and I start with Salt Bay. You may think I'm crazy for going for Knuckle Stack when it's weak to water, but Veluza only has physical attacks and Salt Bay is bulky. That's not all though, because he also has access to Salt Cure, which is a rock type move that deals super effective residual damage to water and steel types. Salt Cure takes out about 1/4 of Veluza's health each turn, so all we have to do is wait it out. I can then switch in Gato to prompt Veluza to use Pluck, which lands on Salt Bay for weak damage. After we fillet it away, he brings in his Wugtrio, his team's special attacker, so I definitely can't keep Knuckle Stack out here. I switch into Enrage to eat a Water Pulse and deal lots of damage with Crunch. Another Crunch gets us the knockout, which means we're going up against Kofu's Ace Crabominable. I switch into Gato as he terastallizes into the Water type, and I'm very lucky here because his Slam ends up missing. 2 more Seed Bombs bring us the victory after he misses Slam again. I'm really liking this change of luck I've had since the last 2 gym leaders. Hopefully it doesn't change again. With Salt Cure, we also have a reasonable way to defeat the Titan Earthworm, since it also deals that strong damage to steel types. I lead with Enrage for the first stage to get the Intimidate debuff, then switch immediately into Salt Bay. The Earthworms seem to only want to go for Headbutt, and I'm not really sure why, but sure, I'll take it. Better than Iron Head. After getting our Salt Cure set up, we can switch back into Enrage to watch as this Titan was whittled away to practically nothing. For Phase 2, I used the same strategy, and surprise surprise, it worked! Though we aren't able to switch Salt Bay out for the slow burn, since we get wrapped into place. All that's left to do after curing is to stall. Easy peasy. Since I was already in the area, it made sense to take on Mela in the Firestar base, and yeah, she's a total pushover. So much so, in fact, that I'm comfortable letting Salt Bay die to add an actual real team member to my team in Zip Zap Zop the Tadbulb, quickly turned Bellabolt. This gives me another solid special tank and special attacker for upcoming battles, but first I have to let it die so I can catch a Nimble that grants me access to West Area 3. Larry is next, and the level cap is just high enough for us to evolve Gato into the incredibly powerful Meowscarada. But even with this fully evolved powerhouse, Larry's fight can be pretty brutal. I don't want to go in too overconfident. First out is Kamala, and if you watched that video I made back in July about what I consider to be the best normal types, you'd know that Kamala hits like a truck with an impressive base 115 attack stat. Enraged is capable of nerfing this monster though, as we can repeatedly switch back and forth between him and Salt Bay to gradually weaken it with each switch. And eventually I start going for Dragon Dances instead of switching, but Yawn puts a quick stop to that setup. So in lieu of that plan, I switch to Salt Bay again and hit with Salt Cure to stall it away to nothing. After one more Intimidate drop with Enraged, I feel safe enough to switch into Meowscarada to start setting up with Hone Claws. The yawn is inevitable, so we're stuck in deep slumber as it crumbles away. You know, I've been thinking about it. If this move Salt Cure were in real life, it'd honestly be pretty terrifying. Imagine you're just chilling outside near a cliff one day in the Paldean region, but then all of a sudden you get sealed in a chunk of salt and dry-aged. They say that human meat tastes like chicken, and if dry-aging a human is anything like dry-aging a chicken, ugh. Now that it's down, we wake up on the next turn to low sweep his Dunsparce, but apparently all these normal types are tanks or something, because it survives and rams us into oblivion with Hyper Drill. The Dunsparce at least doesn't have Yawn, so I'm free to start setting up with Dragon Dance. However, it does have Glare, which is quite annoying. After 2 Dragon Dances, I decide it's time for us to go on the offensive, so we send this disappointment to the Shadow Realm with Waterfall and come face to face with his Ace Staraptor. Being paralyzed is terrifying going up against this thing, since it has Facade. Now, really, Facade wouldn't be that big of a deal if it only had regular stab boost, but he's getting ready to Terastallize into the normal type. That means his Facade is going to do quadruple damage to us. But somehow we actually managed to survive a single Facade, but it's all for naught since we're hit with an unfortunate paralysis turn. I can switch into Zip Zap Zop and lower its speed with a Mud Shot so that I can bring in Salt Bay 2 later and hopefully move first with Recover. That speed drop was pointless though. Oh well. I honestly just wanted to rub in the fact that I could hit a Staraptor with a ground type move. I am able to set up a Salt Cure though and then stall it up with Recover to finish it off with Stomping Tantrum for the victory. And yep, that's exactly what I was talking about. Overconfidence kills, so now we've got to add... Okay. I'll name you Trickster. Releasing Trickster grants us access to the Dalazappa Passage, but accidentally entering Glaziato too soon means I have to part with Zip Zap Zop. If I had a nickel for every time I accidentally entered a new area and had to release my special tank, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Zip Zap Zop though, at least you opened up a huge area of the map for me, so thanks for your service. Rhyme's our next contender, but with us being armed with access to Dragon Dance, she stands no chance. My double leads here are Enraged for the Intimidate debuff as usual, and Meowscarada for solid coverage. Night Slash is enough to send Bayonet flying, and a Crunch from Enraged breaks the Mimikyu's disguise. The gimmick of this gym is that it buffs your attack stats every single time you kill one of the enemy's Pokemon. So after the crowd gives us some attack buffs for being epic, I then start setting up with my Dragon Dances and continue to sweep with Night Slash. Toxtricity is the biggest danger to Gyarados, since we have a 4x weakness to Electric-type moves. But with the crazy amount of buffs we've been given, it's nigh impossible for her to stop us now. A Crunch and Night Slash is all we need to send this Grammy-winning Grammy to bed. You know, it's been a while since we've fought a Titan, let's go do one of those. Great Tusk isn't even going to know what hit it when I'm done. A few Waterfalls from Enraged is all we need to seal the deal, and then for the second phase it's pretty much the same thing, just with a little extra help from Arven and his Scovillain. Though, since it got some buffs from the herb, I wanted to buff myself a little bit too. Dragon Dance plus Waterfalls plus Lucky Flinches equals victory for me. I have to do some silly feint, catch, and release shenanigans to reach Alfrenata for my next gym badge, but on the way there I actually found a shiny Charcadet just chilling near this raid den. I wish I was recording my live reaction at the time, because I honestly didn't think it was shiny before I started the fight. I was literally saying to Toast, hey, what if this is a shiny? Sadly, that moment is lost to time forever. Oh, but yeah, this technically violates my catching rules. So I guess I should mention that I'm playing with the Shiny Claws starting now. I'm not going to be using this guy though, so if you want a chance at getting this shiny Charcadet, be sure to smash the subscribe button and join my Discord server. I'll be giving it away in a raffle when I hit 500 subscribers, but aside from that, you should also totally subscribe so you can catch all the other challenges I do. Okay, that's the plug. No more of those, I promise. I try to take on Tulip immediately, but Nimona wants a piece of the action first. You've probably noticed up to this point that I have not been showing her battles, and the reason for that is they're just all really one-sided. This one is a little bit different though. Her Lycanroc is pretty dangerous for Enraged, and the Intimidate is necessary to ensure we don't fall immediately to Rock Slide. We get a Dragon Dance and then Waterfall for the knockout, but this leaves us very weak going into her Palmot. In all honesty, I should have switched here, but I figured with our boosted attack we could probably handle it. I was almost right, but of course this darn thing hangs on with a few HP. At least after this point, the battle is a cakewalk with Salt Bay and Meowscarada. So, since we lost Enraged, I'd like you to meet Bruno the Espathra. Espathra has incredible special attack and speed stats, which is exactly what my team needs at this point. Now, the only question is, what do you think Bruno's a reference to? I bet you'll never get it. Now, finally we're able to take on Tulip, who starts off the battle with a fair-eye giraffe. This thing has nothing really dangerous for me though, so I'm free to set up my dragon dances and start my sweep with Crunch. And I guess while we're watching this beatdown, it's a good time to start a connection with you guys, so hey, how you doing? Oh good, good. Now, I really want to just thank you for sticking through the video this far. Not a lot of people make it to this point, so I want to try doing something funny, and I'll need your help. If you would, could you please leave a bizarre comment down below about the events of this video, so we can confuse the non-watchers? It can be literally anything, like, wow, I can't believe that's where you can find Mewtwo in this game, or something stupid like that. Just anything to spread some chaos. Alright, thanks. See you around. Our last leader to face off against is Grusha, but I need to give Enraged a strong, super effective move to ensure he goes down without a hitch. So my go-to here is going to be figuring out how to get Ironhead. My first plan was to try to mirror Herbidon by catching Shelby the Orthworm and going on a picnic. So what a great way to learn that this Mirror Herb does not work for just any old move in the move pool, contrary to what I at first believed. I caught Shelby for no reason, really. At least he can be fodder later. The second way to get Ironhead is to beat Ortega at the Fairy Starbase, but the levels of his Pokemon are beyond that of the 8th gym, so going down that route is going to be pretty difficult. But fret not, for I have an unbeatable strategy. We release Shelby to reach Ortega, then proceed to give him an all-out pummeling. Leading with Gato means that we can one-shot his Azumarill lead with Flower Trick, but things are more dicey when Wigglytuff comes in. I switch to Enrage, taking a whopping 5 points of damage from Gyro Ball. Yeah, sure buddy. This Wigglytuff runs a physical moveset, so what I'm doing here is swapping between Enraged and Salt Bae like I did in the Larry fight. It's best to do this repeated swap strategy against relatively weak enemies with only physical moves, and honestly it's pretty effective for prepping your setups. We need all the buffing we can get when we're so underleveled, so once we hit +5 attack and speed, it's time to bring in the sweep. Waterfall can take out his Wigglytuff and Doxman, and lands a heavy blow on Revavroom, but sadly it isn't quite enough for victory. So I have to bring back in Gato to try to pick up the scraps with a few flower tricks, but Magical Torque just does a bit too much for my liking. Instead of continuing my useless folly, I switch to Salt Bae on the next turn and start buffing our defenses to safely set up and chip away with Salt Cure, after hitting myself twice in confusion. Yeah. Oh, but wait, it gets better. Did you know Salt Cure does not deal residual damage to these Team Star Revavrooms? Yeah, I just love being alive so much right now. So much. Why I kept using Salt Cure, you may ask? I have no idea at this point. Clearly it wasn't working. Maybe it was what I thought the strongest available move was? I really don't know what I was thinking. Eventually I went for Stomping Tantrum, which didn't do much more. After an eternity more of chipping away, we finally claim victory and gain access to Ironhead. I honestly can't believe we only lost one there. I was for sure this challenge was doomed because of how underleveled we were. To make up for Enrage's death, I catch a nearby Hoppip, creatively name it Grasscopter, and climb my way back up the mountain. With Ironhead now on my Fierce Dragon, we are able to take on the final gym. I wish I could say this battle was the most intense one so far to keep the flow of the narrative consistent, but I'd just be flat out lying if I did. Sure, Frostmoth can be a pain to set up against because of Blizzard, but Enrage can take one no sweat and return with a boosted Ironhead. In fact, all of Grusha's teammates from this point out fall with just one Ironhead each, no more boosting necessary. Well, except the Titan, but it flinched, so it's close enough. So yeah, we've got some time to kill while we watch his Altaria fall. Did you do what I asked earlier? Trust me, it'll be funny. Oh, wait, Altaria took more than one hit too? Dang, that thing is beefy. At least its Hurricane missed. And now that all the gym leaders are finished, it's time to beat up the final Titan. But on my way to Castle Royal Lake, it happened again. Another shiny! Look, I know I promised no more plugs, but just real quick please. I'll give this one away in the Discord when we hit 750 subscribers. That's all? No more? Done with plugs? Thanks. We say goodbye to Grasscopter for access to the lake and begin the Titan fight immediately. This one has 3 phases, so it's a bit more difficult than the last ones, but that's really a non-issue for my team, especially since we have Flower Trick. The first phase Dondozo is down after a Hone Claw set up into 2 Flower Tricks. The paralysis from Body Slam was pretty nerve-wracking, but hey, we survived. And now we're on to phase 2, but because Flower Trick always crits, we don't even need to worry about the Herba Mystica boost. Again we go Hone Claws into double Flower Tricks, but this time instead of Body Slam with Paralysis chance, we instead just get served with some weaker order-ups. The third phase of this fight is a little different since Tatsugiri isn't hit for super effective damage by Meowscarada's Flower Trick, but what I do have up my sleeve is a handy play rough. 3 boosted play roughs is all that's necessary to give us the final Herba Mystica and cure Arven's puppy dog. Completing this battle also prompts Sada to give us a call on a mission to the middle of Area 0, but first I'm going to finish up the other storylines a bit more. And that means we need to finish up the remaining star bases. To get into the Lag Tree Thicket, I had to let Bruno faint to give us a free Slowpoke catch and release. Atticus's base is around 20 levels below us at this point, so you can probably predict that this went very well. Oh, and I forgot to release Jill before this fight because I got distracted by a cutscene, but don't you worry, I released her right after. You may think I'm a little stupid using Lumina Crash against a dark type like Skuntank, but all I really wanted was to bait out a Toxic so Bruno can die later. And yeah, at this point you should know the strategy and the reason why. This cute little Squavet is my ticket to the next base, though I'm getting a bit concerned. There are only 3 new areas I can use to release Pokemon before we go into the crater. This challenge is probably going to come down to the wire, I can just feel it. And that's one interesting thing about this challenge, I think. It's heavily backloaded. The first part proceeds practically like a normal game because you have so much freedom with where to explore. But as you gradually complete the map, your opportunities for team changes dwindles away to practically nothing. The catch and release may be the best method for moving around early on, but towards the end you've got to decide if you want more wiggle room for allowed deaths, or more Pokemon on your team for coverage. The Elite Test is where this decision really comes into play. But for now let's forget that and talk about Aerie. Her Toxicroak is equipped with Sucker Punch, which gives us a great opportunity for setting up if we're able to predict when she'll use it. I lead Enrage for the Intimidate attack drop, and then switch into Salt Bay to tank a hit. I then know this will prompt her to use Brick Break, which I can switch Bruno into safely. Bruno's important to bring in here because he can use Feather Dance twice to bring Toxicroak to -5 attack, before I switch in Enrage to make it an even -6. This gives me a safe way to set up my Dragon Dances, especially since I equipped Enrage with a Lumberry to counter the chance of being poisoned by Poison Jab. With our attack and speed at their maxima, Iron Head can one-shot the Toxicroak, Waterfall can take out Passimian, Lucario, and Annihilate, and finally her Starmobile is a 2-shot with Waterfall, but wastes its one chance at taking us out on using a single useless Shift Gear. With that battle out of the way, now all we have to deal with is the endgame for each of the quests. Let's start with the Elite Four since they have the next lowest levels out of all of our next battles. Going in with only 4 will definitely make things interesting. Rika's a ground type user, so we have some awesome coverage with both Gato and Enraged. She leads with Whiscash, which is 4 times weak to Flower Trick, so we can one-shot it and then she brings in Camerupt. We have no coverage on Gato for it though, so this is where I need to do a bit of switching. We bait out a Fire Blast, which hits Salt Bay 2 for neutral damage. The reason for bringing in Salt Bay 2 was so she would go for Earth Power and I could switch into Enraged. This works beautifully, and we get the knockout with a single Waterfall. When she brings in her Donphan, I switch back into Salt to eat a Stone Edge, then continue back and forth between it and Enraged to do that same old repeated Intimidate strategy. After I feel like Donphan has been nerfed enough, I can get off a Dragon Dance and take it out with 2 Waterfalls, since it had Sturdy. A single Dragon Dance is all that's necessary for the rest of her teammates, since her Dugtrio lacks the bulk to survive the boosted Waterfall, and Clodsire poses no major offensive threat to us. Unfortunately, we have less coverage for Poppy's Steel types, but we'll have to make do with Enraged Earthquake for half her team. Earthquake is able to knock out our Caparajah turn 1 and bait her into bringing in Magnezone. I know a Discharge is coming my way though, so I switch into Masquerada to eat the damage. But unfortunately we bear the brunt of Paralysis and fall to just 17 HP following a Flash Cannon. We get off a Flower Trick just to break the Sturdy before I switch into Garganacl to bait another Flash Cannon. This gives me a free switch into Gyarados, who I now know is faster and can take it down with Earthquake. Out third is Corviknight, who is completely immune to Earthquake, so instead I choose to start setting up Dragon Dances before trying Ice Fang on for size. While we do get some damage and 2 freezes, the damage is minimal thanks to Iron Defense. With Corviknight frozen, I'm very safe to just keep spamming with Dragon Dances and Ice Fangs though. When it thaws out, it hits hard with a Brave Bird, bringing it just low enough for my double attack stat Ice Fang to take the kill. Bronzong also unfortunately has Levitate, so I'm stuck needing to switch out and forego my buffs. But honestly, I should have just stayed in since it went for Iron Head. Now I no longer have my boosted attack and speed stats, and I'm in an even worse position than what I was before the switch. The only team member not in red health right now is Bruno, who actually has some coverage for this thing in the form of Shadow Ball. And the great thing is, Bruno can even tank a Zen Headbutt on the switch. 2 Shadow Balls is enough for the kill, meaning we're now up against her Ace Tinkaton. I know there's a Gigaton Hammer coming my way, so I mitigate all of her future damage with 3 Feather Dances and let Bruno fall just to bring out Salt Bay. I can then finish the job with Salt Cure and Earthquake. So, what happens now? We're stuck in here, but we're due for another encounter.
You have to keep doing the test without the new encounter, but the counter is still active. Your team is effectively a team of 5, but you can only use 4. If you lose 2 more members in the next 3 fights, you lose, and I'm gonna get that 200.
So yeah, we don't get the extra coverage with the new Pokemon, but we still have our team expanded. This was probably the most nervous I'd been throughout the whole challenge, and I had to be very careful for the rest of this test. At least our next battle isn't very concerning, since we have both Ice and Rock type moves to handle Larry's flying types. I lead with Garganacl to set up Stealth Rock, then switch into Meowscarada to tank the incoming Solar Beam. From here I then predict Air Slash, so I switch back into Salt Bay. I repeated the switching process until the sunlight faded, and on that turn I was able to bring in Enrage for the kill with a quad-effective Ice Fang. Larry's Staraptor gave me a bit of trouble in the gym leader fight before, but this time I'm much better equipped to handle whatever he throws at me. Switching between Salt Bay and Enraged lowers its attack to the point where it no longer poses a threat, which is exactly when I start setting up with the dances. Our Ice Fang can then bring down his Staraptor, Altaria, Oricorio, and even Flamigo without a sweat. As for Hassel, we thankfully have some decent coverage for dragons with Play Rough, Dazzling Gleam, and Ice Fang, so I'm hoping this battle can go down without a hitch. His Noivern Super Fang doesn't care about my Intimidate drop, so we take half our health on the first turn as I set up a single Dragon Dance. Ice Fang can then take down his Noivern and Dragalge, but stops just shy of the kill on Haxorus, leaving Salt Bay to pick it up with Earthquake. Enraged is now stuck with just a sliver of health, so it's practically out for the entire rest of the battle. So instead of going back to it, I have to bring in Bruno against Flapple. Doing this allows me to minimize its attack stat with Feather Dance for a safe switch to Gatto. Now that we're taking essentially no damage, I can set up with the Hone Claws, take down Flapple, and face off against his Baxcalibur. This thing is a monster, and a lot bulkier than I thought it would be, so he actually just barely survives one of my Play Roughs and gets his revenge with Icicle Crash. I know that since Gatto was faster, Bruno would be as well, so we can safely pick up the kill with Dazzling Gleam. Well, that's one more down. Our team is effectively full at this point, but we can only use 4 against the champion. So here's the real fun of the challenge. If any 4 of these die, we lose. I use my rare candies to strengthen us up as much as possible before stepping into that elevator. Geeta's Espathra with Opportunist prevents me from setting up, and Crunch stops just shy of taking the kill. To avoid a deadly second Lumina crash, I have to switch into Gatto to avoid any damage, then take the kill quickly with U-turn. This means I can choose what I want her to send in next. Bringing in Salt Bay prompts her to bring Avalugg in, which I can set up Salt Cure on and stall with Recover before switching Bruno into a not very effective Body Press, and getting a quick kill with Lumina Crash. She then brings in King Gambit, meaning there's a Kowtow Cleave coming my way, and the Mon who's best suited to tanking that has got to be Gatto. After another super quick U-turn into Enraged, we can then start our immediate switch strategy. King Gambit has Iron Head and Stone Edge, which deal not very effective damage to Enraged and Salt Bay respectively. I even managed to survive a single Iron Head with Salt Bay to set up a Salt Cure so we can passively destroy it. The Salt Cure gives us just enough of an edge for Earthquake to finish it off. 3 down and 3 to go, now we have to deal with Go-Goat, and I figure my best strategy is to go for Ice Fang. And I proved to be right, since it was a 2-shot even after it healed with a Horn Leech. Veluza is probably the least scary member of our whole team, but I need to set up against it so I can guarantee a 1-shot on the Glamora she has in the back. So first I use Bruno to minimize its attack stat, bring in Gatto to set up a Hone Claws, then make annoying fish fillets with Flower Trick. Yeah, if you ever shiny hunted Dondozo, you'd be calling Veluza annoying too. And thanks to her Rock Terastallization, my Flower Trick deals super effective damage, which means that we can bring an end to this nightmare. Oh my god, that was probably the hardest thing I've done all game. Keeping everyone alive was just a major chore, so I'm glad it's finally over. After all that, I need a break from the Victory Road storyline, so I'll take on Nimona a bit later. After picking up and evolving a Varoom and Larvesta to fill up my team appropriately, we return to the Pocopath Lighthouse to take Arven down. Greedent is perfect to set up against, since the worst it can do is paralyze us with Body Slam, and I equipped a Lumberry just in case that did happen. After just 2 Dragon Dances, I'm ready to start my sweep, but I'm left shocked to see that it has survived my +2 Earthquake. Not even his Garganacl he sent up next could do that. Just how bulky is that squirrel? After those 2 defensive walls are out of the way, we can clean up his Toadscruel with an Ice Fang and Scoville him with Earthquake. Then he brings in the last wall Cloyster, who survives 1 Earthquake but can't deal any real damage in return. 1 more Earthquake for it and 2 for his Mabostiff finishes up the fight and the entire Path of Legends storyline. Only 2 more paths to go, and next I'm going to finish up Starfall Street. To do that, we have to confront Clivel, but surely you're getting tired of how long this video is. And you're well aware of the strategies I'm using at this point, so I'll just hit the highlights on this one. Oranguru's Foul Play deals quite a lot of damage, but we knock it out with 2 crunches. I switch to Garganacl and get his Gyarados with Salt Cure, while Corona's Fiery Dance handles Abomasnow, Poltegeist, and Amoonguss, and also has the benefit of building up our special attack stat enough to two-shot his Skeledirge with Hurricane followed by Fiery Dance. Yes, I know Hurricane was a risky play, but it paid off. I'll go quick with Penny here too, since evolutions aren't much cause for concern. Bug Buzz takes care of Umbreon, Flower Trick handles Vaporeon, another Bug Buzz is all we need for Leafeon, Flareon kills itself with Flare Blitz, Earthquake two-shots Jolteon after Baby Doll Eyes, and Sylveon does give me a little bit of trouble, but setting up Salt Cure and switching between various members of my team to tank attacks brings it to its knees and thus ends the Starfall Street quest. And now for the final plotline. All we've got standing between us and the crater is Nimona, so let's take her down. Gato handles Lycanroc the first turn, so she doesn't get a chance to set up any nasty Stealth Rocks. Seeing my Dark type, she raises us with Palmot, but I'm able to U-turn out of there into Bruno to handle the incoming close combat and get revenge with Lumina Crash. After feather dancing a few times on her to Dunsparce, my switch into Praise the Sun for a setup is ready. Quiver Dance is, has been, and always will be busted, and after 3 of them, my sweep can begin. But somehow her Goodra survived my Bug Buzz. Thankfully, Quiver Dance raises special defense too, or else we would have been a goner there. Orthworm falls to Fiery Dance, and I know that I can't safely switch here to anyone else, since an Aqua Step from Quaquaval would mean it outspeeds everyone else on the team. So I take the biggest risk of the whole challenge here, and it pays off as we take the final win with Bug Buzz. Looking back, the team has really come together since our rough start to this challenge. We're so good now that I don't even need the extra 3 release opportunities before entering the crater. If we die down here, Zoomies, I hope you preserve my legacy. I already talked about the story and my opinions of this game in my solo Wooper video, so if you're interested to hear what I have to say there, go check it out. But for this video, I think I know what you're really interested in. We aren't here for the story. We're here to see how this Anti-Nuzlocke plays out in the end.
Good luck with Sada, you might need it.
I lead Bruno against Slitherwing to reduce its attack with Feather Dance, but even with the reduced attack, its lunge is still going to two-shot. So I take the safe switch into Volcarona and set up with Quiver Dance. Its best move against me is Low Sweep, but with the Clear Amulet I can avoid the stat drop. This means I'm practically free to get off 4 Quiver Dances and then launch a one-shot Fiery Dance. This means I'm also fast and strong enough to one-shot Fluttermane, Sandy Shocks, but as I go for the knockout on Brute Bonnet, it Sucker Punches me. That really stings. Now if I lose another team member, that's it for the whole run. But I can switch into Gato and then U-turn into Enrage to set up with Dragon Dances and murder with Ice Fang. With our new sweep boost setup complete, we take Screamdale down with Earthquake. And for the final turn of this, the first ever Pokemon Anti-Nuzlocke on YouTube, an Ice Fang against Roaring Moon proves, once and for all, that I am the Anti-Nuzlocke King.
Alright, I'll take that 200 now.